An omega wearing a white shirt stands at the entrance of the marriage registry. The young man has clean features. Even when standing in the most inconspicuous shadow beside the Civil Affairs Bureau, passers-by will still cast somewhat inquisitive glances at him from time to time. The young man glances at his watch and then at the photo sent by his mother on his phone. He continues to look towards the end of the road. The young man was Leo, who, in compliance with the demands of his family, he is about to enter into a marriage of alliance. When the time on the wristwatch just points to 10:20, a black sports car finally drives up from the end of the road. The car door opens, and what comes into view is a pair of straight and slender legs. Looking up, one can see the alpha's deeply contoured features. The alpha has a tall and straight figure. As soon as he gets out of the car, the man takes out his phone. The sun is shining brightly, and the photo on the phone is not clear. The alpha frowns slightly. The alpha is the president of Lu Group. He is almost 27 years old. He has just matched with a suitable omega for himself. There are indeed omegas around him. It's just that Mr. Andrew has only had his career in mind over the years. When he gets busy with work, he doesn't have time to think about relationships. Andrew stood in front of the car for a while, but still couldn't see the screen clearly. So he turns around and walks towards the Civil Affairs Bureau. There was a young man standing beside the Civil Affairs Bureau. The alpha just glanced at him at first, but somehow took a few more looks. Mr. Andrew didn't have any extraordinary thoughts. It's just that when people see beautiful things, they always have a bit of appreciation. And at the same time, Leo was also observing the alpha walking towards him. But the man's gaze only stayed on his side for a moment, then walked straight into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Leo didn't have time to clearly see the man's face. But since the man went straight into the Civil Affairs Bureau, it was supposed that he came to handle other matters. The omega didn't care and continued to squat in the corner on the outermost side, looking out. After Andrew walked into the shadow of the building, he could see the phone clearly. The next second after seeing the phone clearly, the president immediately matched the photo in the phone with the omega he had just glanced at. Andrew didn't hesitate. He turned around and walked straight out of the marriage registration office. The man walked very quietly. When he walked beside the omega, the young man didn't notice yet. However, the closer he got to the omega, the more carefully the president could observe the young man. The young man was in a daze. His black, broken hair just reached his eyebrows. It just revealed the young man's eyes that reflected the sunlight. Could this be the omega I'm marrying by arrangement? Mr. Andrew's heart was beating inexplicably a little faster. Of course, just a little bit faster. Andrew was a bit distracted. When he walked in front of Leo, he blurted out straightforwardly, "Hello, would you like to get a marriage certificate with me?" Leo frowned, being looked at doubtfully by the omega. Andrew then realized his words were a bit abrupt, so he added a bit awkwardly, "I mean, are you the one I'm marrying by arrangement?" The alpha added, "The one I'm marrying by arrangement is Mr. Leo." Leo also saw Andrew's face clearly. Comparing it with the photo his family gave him, he recognized that this was the one he was marrying by arrangement. But the omega was startled by the alpha's polite greeting. Leo instinctively replied, "Oh, right. Hello, may I ask what your name is?" "Andrew." "Hello, I'm Andrew." "Leo." "Hello to you too, I'm Leo." Then, the two exchanged business cards politely, considering it as getting to know each other. Leo: "So, shall we get a marriage certificate now?" Andrew: "Let's get it. After all, we're already here." Leo: "All right." In a muddle, they got their marriage certificates. However, with the family marriage arranged beforehand, the two of them tacitly decided to live their own lives. But neither Andrew nor Leo had thought of looking for someone else. Andrew is the president. He's so busy every day that he doesn't have time to think about it. Besides, he's already married through a family arrangement. Well, no matter what, Leo is his omega and a member of the Lu family. Leo does have time, but as an omega, he thinks much more simply. He's just a bit lazy. Anyway, as the saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. Love is one of those roads leading to marriage. So since he's already in Rome, why should he look for those roads? Leo thinks his idea makes a lot of sense. Moreover, Leo has several older brothers at home. As the omega in the family, he doesn't need to worry about the family business. The omega simply opened a pastry shop by himself and started living a leisurely and happy life. After marriage, Leo seldom interferes in Mr. Andrew's life. However, Andrew, because he had to go back to the Liu family's old house from time to have meals with a group of Liu family elders. Andrew often contacted Leo. Sometimes it was to buy couple outfits for attending banquets with Leo. Sometimes it was to pick Leo up at the pastry shop and take him back to the Liu family's old house to deal with the people of the Liu family. It was another evening. It rained today, and there were few customers in the pastry shop. When Leo left, he casually took a new product he had recently developed. The cake was not originally prepared for Mr. Andrew. The two of them were going back to the Liu family's old house together again tonight. Alpha's mother liked pastries very much. The college student who worked part-time at the pastry shop had already left, and Leo was holding the pastry in his hand. It was inconvenient for him to lock the door of the shop. Omega thought for a while and decided to put the pastry on the passenger seat of the car first. Then he turned around and went back to the shop. Andrew had been working continuously for a whole day before coming to pick up Leo. When he saw the small cake on the passenger seat, the more he looked at it, the hungrier he became. By the time Leo came back, only a layer of wrapping paper was left of the small cake. Mr. Andrew also felt a little embarrassed. He had originally only wanted to eat a small piece. Unexpectedly, after eating several small pieces, 3/4 of the small cake was gone. Mr. Andrew thought for a moment. He felt it wasn't appropriate to let the Omega take such a small amount to meet his mother, so he simply finished it all. Leo made the cake very well, because it was his favorite job. The Omega did it earnestly and outstandingly. The cake was to his taste. Mr. Andrew liked it, but because it was just a marriage of convenience, he only liked it a little bit. Well, the cake looks quite good. Mr. Andrew's eyes involuntarily moved towards Leo. But when he met the inquiring look the Omega gave after seeing the empty wrapping paper, Mr. Andrew suddenly felt a bit awkward, so the Alpha turned his gaze out of the window again and explained in a dry voice, "I just tasted it on behalf of my mother first." When the Omega saw the president avoiding his gaze, he suddenly thought of the embarrassed look of a few-year-old child caught stealing food. Leo said tentatively, "It's okay." Then, "How does it taste?" Mr. Andrew's ears twitched. It seemed that, from the Omega's tone, he wasn't very embarrassed either. Mr. Andrew turned his head and looked at Leo. "It's delicious," Andrew affirmed. "You're really good at making these." Andrew, "Really?" Leo felt a bit embarrassed by the praise and lowered his head. "Thank you." And so this matter was put aside, and neither of them brought it up again. Leo always remembered that the two were only married for the alliance. Even if Andrew came back late from social events, Leo wouldn't rush him, not even make a phone call. Leo would leave a small piece of cake for the Alpha, whether it was to fill his stomach or for other reasons. When it was past 10 o'clock and the Alpha still hadn't returned, Leo usually would go to rest first. In the 3rd month of their alliance marriage, Leo, due to a sudden accident and being ill-prepared, fell into period. Leo was at home at that time. Andrew was working overtime again tonight. Besides, even if Mr. Andrew wasn't working overtime, the two were just in an alliance marriage relationship, not really in a romantic relationship. After thinking for a while, Leo used his last bit of rationality to call the beta butler. With a drowsy consciousness, the Omega didn't see the phone note clearly, and the call was actually made to the Alpha, who was in a meeting. "That's all for today. It's getting late. Everyone can leave work first. There's still a tough battle to fight tomorrow." As the meeting was coming to an end, Andrew stood up. The mobile phone was placed aside, with both mute and vibration turned off. So Mr. Andrew didn't answer the wrong call from Omega. After the meeting ended, Andrew talked to the heads of several departments for a while. Then he picked up his phone and prepared to go back to his office first. Originally, he was supposed to have a meal with his partner. Andrew then walked to the elevator entrance with the others, who knew that the partner first proposed to go back. "Go back?" Alpha asked. The partner pointed at his phone and said with a smile, "My family is urging me." Family? For some reason, Andrew immediately thought of his marriage partner, and the small cakes made by his marriage partner, which suited his taste very well. The partner pressed the elevator button. While waiting for the elevator, he also glanced at his phone from time to time. The partner laughed and said, "I didn't check my phone during the meeting. In just this short while, they've urged me several times." Mr. Andrew frowned. Hearing the partner's tone that seemed helpless, but was actually doting, the elevator door opened, but Mr. Andrew paused as he was about to enter the elevator. Seemingly casually, he asked, "Does he urge you to go home?" Partner. "He's strict. There's nothing I can do." Andrew. "He still keeps tabs on you?" Partner. "He's quite clingy. If we haven't seen each other for a while, he'll pester me to make a call. Such a hassle." Although the partner was complaining, his steps didn't hesitate at all. He walked faster than anyone else. Andrew thought of his family member again, and suddenly felt a bit off. His family member never seemed to be clingy, nor did he ever pester to call him. Of course, he didn't necessarily need his Omega to be clingy. Besides, he and his Omega were just married for the sake of alliance. They should leave enough space for each other. There's no need to be overly affectionate. That would be boring. Just a marriage of alliance, the alpha told himself over and over again. But his eyes still couldn't help looking at the partner's phone. "Andrew, how does your family member urge you to go home? When does he usually urge you to go home? How many times does he urge you? Does your family member urge you every day?" Mr. Andrew. Ahem. Alpha retracted his gaze that was almost glued to his partner's phone. He coughed twice to cover up. "Well, I'm not envious. I'm just a little curious," Mr. Andrew explained. Mr. Andrew explained. The partner said, "Hee hee." After watching the partner leave, Mr. Andrew returned to his office. He hadn't looked at his phone, and he didn't know how many calls Omega had made to him. Alpha thought that, like usual, Omega wouldn't contact him, but he still couldn't help looking at his phone. As soon as he opened the missed calls, Mr. Andrew was stunned. 3 missed calls. Could it be that Omega was also calling to urge him to go home? There was a little anticipation in Alpha's heart. Of course, just a little. Without even turning off his computer, Mr. Andrew rushed out of the office. Alpha started to call back, walking briskly towards the parking lot, while listening to the beep 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 sound in the receiver. The phone wasn't answered for a long time, so Alpha dialed another call. On the way, he also met his former partner. Alpha walked over. He pointed to his mobile phone, indicating that he was on the phone. So Mr. Andrew mouthed to the partner, "Family members are also urging." When he made the third call back, the other side finally answered. Leo was suffering terribly, and his voice was intermittent. "Leo, hello?" Mr. Andrew's 5 fingers pinching the phone suddenly tightened. Even the tips of his ears turned red in an instant. He wasn't completely ignorant. The situation at the moment wasn't difficult to understand. There were no other sounds in the receiver, only the Omega's suppressed, muffled voice that was almost choking, accompanied by the rustling of clothes. Almost instantly, Andrew guessed that his Omega might be going through a heat cycle. Not only that, when Andrew was on the phone, from the other end of the phone, there happened to be the chime of a clock striking the hours. There was exactly a solid wood grandfather clock placed in the living room of the villa where he and Leo lived. Leo was at home, Mr. Andrew thought. His Omega was at home and had entered a heat cycle, but didn't choose to use suppressants. Instead, he dialed his phone. What did this mean? Mr. Andrew asked himself and gave himself the answer in his heart. So his Omega was so dependent on him? They all said that an Omega in heat would be much more clingy than usual. His Omega should also be thinking about calling him and urging him to go home in normal times, right? Although they were just married for business reasons. But he could also help his Omega, Mr. Andrew thought. Moreover, they all said that using too much inhibitor was bad for the body. Since the Omega had married him, then naturally he had the obligation to accompany his Omega, and he would be very gentle. Mr. Andrew put on his Bluetooth headset, and while listening to the phone, he started looking up information about AO marking. After all, he had never marked an Omega, and for some knowledge, he still needed to read some experience sharing before he could put it into practice. So, within less than 2 minutes after Mr. Andrew answered the phone, the redness on the tips of his ears had spread to his face. The Alpha took a few steps and then stopped, then took a few more steps, holding the phone in one hand, and with the other hand, he either adjusted his tie or poked the ornament in front of the car. Mr. Andrew's mind was filled with thoughts, but calming his Omega, but taking care of his Omega is the most important thing. So, Andrew was about to speak and tell his Omega that he would be back soon. However, before Mr. Andrew could say anything, there was a voice from the Omega's side. Hello. Leo still retained a sliver of rationality, and his body was burning hot. But the Omega had always been clearly aware that he and the Alpha were only married for the sake of an alliance. If it hadn't been for the sudden onset of the heat today, catching him off guard, the Omega originally planned to spend his special period in a special isolation room at the hospital. Leo didn't intend to ask Andrew for help. Is that Uncle James? Uncle James is the beta housekeeper of the family, an old man who is said to have taken care of Mr. Andrew for almost 20 years. Uncle James, could you pass me an inhibitor? Leo managed to say a complete sentence, but the Omega waited for a long time and didn't hear Uncle James' kind voice. Leo, Uncle James? At this moment, the person on the other end of the phone was also full of confusion. Mr. Andrew looked at the phone screen again and again, confirming that the call was indeed from his Omega. But this call wasn't originally meant for him. Uncle James? Suppressant? So what this means is, his Omega, his family members, would rather have suppressants than him? Hospital. I need suppressants for an Omega. The Alpha took out his ID card, and then added an unnecessary explanation. It's for my family member. He specifically called and asked me to help. Doctor. Oh, Mr. Andrew was still pondering. But why would he rather have suppressants than let me help? Doctor. I don't know, Mr. Andrew took a look and found that the doctor was also an Alpha. Andrew, do you have an Omega? The doctor, wearing a mask, continued to write the prescription. No, Andrew. No wonder you don't know. Mr. Andrew had an expression of, I'm different from you, and said proudly, I have an Omega, completely baffling. Mr. Andrew finally reluctantly took 2 suppressants. Of course, he wasn't particularly reluctant. He just really wanted to slip and accidentally drop the inhibitors on the ground. Preferably, they would break. Then he could reluctantly give a temporary mark. Although they were only married for business, as an Alpha, he had the obligation to soothe his Omega. However, in exchange, he hoped that his Omega would call him during the next heat cycle instead of calling Uncle James. On the other end, after making the call, Leo completely lost his strength. When he's in heat next time, he hopes his Omega can call him instead of Uncle James. On the other end, Leo completely lost his strength after making the call. This was also the reason why Leo called the butler Uncle James. Fortunately, betas are not affected by pheromones. The sound of the door opening rang out. The corners of Leo's eyes were tinged with red, and his voice was weak. Uncle James! The sound of the door opening rang out. The corners of Leo's eyes were tinged with red, and his voice was weak. Uncle James! Not hearing a reply, Leo opened his eyes slightly, just as he met the gaze of Mr. Andrew at the door. In fact, Andrew did not want to reply, but rather didn't have the time to reply. And their compatibility, the compatibility between the two was not low. The moment the door opened, the Alpha could barely walk. The Alpha could barely walk. The pheromones on the Omega kept coming over. What's more, Leo looked at himself, his light-colored eyes glistening with water. It was like the surface of a lake caressed by the wind. Mr. Andrew was stunned for a moment, and then more ripples appeared on the lake. Leo just felt even more uncomfortable, unable to control his pheromones. He didn't have any strength left in his whole body. He even felt that he was wrapped in the air. He clearly felt every wisp of air brushing past his ankles, neck, even his glands. The corners of his eyes became even redder, with a teardrop that was about to fall but didn't, gathering on his eyelashes. It was glistening. Mr. Andrew quietly hid the inhibitor behind him. He wanted to make more ripples on the lake, preferably to stir up a violent storm. The lake was bumping and shaking. He would hold the Omega in his arms, kiss away the Omega's tears, and then leave his mark. Why are you here? Leo tried his best to stay awake. Andrew picked up his phone and waved it at the Omega. You've dialed the wrong number. Leo closed his eyes, a bit self-reproachful for his carelessness. The Omega raised his hand. Originally, he wanted to wave his hand to signal the Alpha to leave. I'm sore, who knew that he wanted to say sorry, but before the words could even fall, he was eagerly embraced by Mr. Andrew. Mr. Andrew's eyes suddenly lit up. Holding his Omega, he also reached out to hold the Omega's hand. Is this way of holding okay? or this way. The alpha moved his hand down a bit, so excited that he didn't know what to do. I'm not very good at this. If you feel uncomfortable, remember to tell me. Wait, what's going on here? Andrew was holding his omega, and the alpha's soothing pheromones were constantly sticking to the omega. So his omega was so clingy, asking for a hug as soon as he came, thought Mr. Andrew. The pheromones bloomed in the bedroom. Mr. Andrew pulled the omega into his arms. Can I really soothe you? Although I've never soothed an omega before, I just learned how to do it. The inhibitor surely isn't as effective as me, Mr. Andrew promised. Give me a try. The night was thick, and the pheromones spread like waves in the room, crashing against the rocks. Finally, it shattered into layer upon layer of waves. Andrew hugged his omega tightly in these waves. The omega raised his head, with tears at the corners of his eyes. Mr. Andrew reached out and pulled the omega into his arms, and his kiss landed on the omega's eyelashes. Don't cry, it'll be over soon, Mr. Andrew said, one hand clasping the omega's waist, causing the omega's fair neck to be exposed. The omega's gland, which had not been marked yet, was slightly red. It was tinged with a light pink, and Mr. Andrew was uncharacteristically a bit nervous. The alpha bent down, his scorching breath landing there. Leo couldn't stand it and tried to dodge, but his waist was clasped even tighter. The alpha's pheromone carried a soothing effect, and he gently licked across the omega's gland. When his teeth were about to pierce the skin, the alpha's voice became muffled. I'll be quick, just 1 minute. Although this statement seemed a bit off, but Leo was clearly soothed. Hurry up then. The omega's entire body was infused with the alpha's pheromone. It was as if he had been soaked in orange soda for an entire summer. In every cell flowed the sweet orange scent belonging to the alpha. The temporary mark made the omega weak. The omega tugged at the alpha's sleeve, attempting to get the alpha to let him go, but he didn't realize that the amorous look at the corners of his eyes. The look with a hint of charm at the corners of his eyes would only make the alpha lose control even more. Thus, 1 minute was infinitely prolonged, so long that the omega, in a trance, mistook it for a century. Pheromones spread, and the two moved into the same bedroom for the first time since their arranged marriage. The next day, the alarm clock rang 3 times, but neither Andrew nor Leo paid any attention. When Leo woke up, he was still resting his head on the alpha's arm. In the end, Mr. Andrew got up first. After washing up, he cooked a pot of plain porridge, and kept it warm in the pot for his omega. Leo gradually woke up to the fragrance of the porridge. What happened last night was unexpected, and now the omega felt a bit embarrassed. He and Andrew were just in an arranged marriage, not really in a relationship. What they did last night was really not proper. It was just a temporary mark, Leo told himself. Leo didn't expect the alpha to take responsibility. After all, it was he who made the wrong call first. About what happened last night, Leo started to say. He wanted to say that they should regard what happened last night as an accident. Mr. Andrew came right up and gave his omega a kiss with a lemon-like fragrance. In fact, it was the taste of toothpaste. Mr. Andrew, don't worry, I'll be responsible. Mr. Andrew, do you still feel uncomfortable? If you do, you must tell me. Leo's eyes widened slightly. Mr. Andrew thought his omega hadn't recovered from the temporary marking yet, so he leaned closer to the omega and kissed him again, and his pheromones wrapped around Leo soothingly. Leo, you? Responsible? But Andrew directly took the omega's hand. Yes, Andrew, I'll be responsible. Mr. Andrew suddenly thought that it seemed that after an alpha and an omega got together, they would call each other's family members husband or wife. So the alpha leaned closer to Leo and kissed the corner of Leo's lips. Can I call you wife from now on? Wait, isn't this developing a bit too fast? Before Leo could react, Mr. Andrew continued. Wife, there's still warm congee in the pot. I cooked it following a recipe when I just woke up. Although I failed twice, the final result was not bad. Do you want to have a taste? Leo got up in a daze and had the congee. Andrew, honey, how is it? Mr. Andrew's eyes sparkled like a large dog. Andrew originally planned to stay at home with his omega. After all, they had just gone through a temporary marking, and omegas all need the comfort of alphas. Unexpectedly, in the afternoon, he received a call from his assistant and had to go to the company temporarily. Before going out, Andrew was tying his tie while preparing to go to the company. The partner's family member calls him every night, urging him to go home for dinner together. Leo was still resting and replied lazily, Andrew, it's every night. Leo, got it. Andrew, every night, you know. When Andrew arrived at the company, the partner had just returned from outside. Andrew glanced at the suit on himself. He unobtrusively changed his coat and put it on the back of the chair. The alpha thought for a while, then unbuttoned the cuffs and rolled them up. When the partner came in, what he saw was Andrew with his arms exposed. But the partner just took a glance and then focused on today's work. The partner sat opposite Andrew, swiveled his chair, and started talking about the recent project. While discussing the project, the partner wasn't sure if it was just his illusion, but Andrew's arm kept swaying in front of his eyes. Every time it swayed, Andrew would also cough once. The partner said, "The Zhao family is also keeping an eye on this project." Andrew reached out to get the document, and his arm swayed. Cough, cough, cough. The partner ignored it and continued to talk about business. The partner said, "However, the information the Zhao family has obtained must not be as comprehensive as ours. I think our next step could be." Before he could finish, Andrew handed the document back, and his arm swayed again. Andrew said, "Cough, cough, cough, cough." Finally, the partner couldn't hold back and his eyes landed on Andrew's arm. Only then did he notice that on the lower and inner part of Alpha's arm seemed a bit red. The partner asked, "What's wrong with your arm?" Andrew replied, "It's nothing, nothing." The partner said, "Oh." After the partner stopped asking, Andrew casually brought his wrist close to the partner again and said, "Last night, my family member was clingy and scratched me." Andrew, does your family member act this clingy? Only then did Andrew leave contentedly. In the evening, Andrew was in a meeting. Unlike before when he was fully focused on work, Andrew had a mobile phone placed on his right side. As time passed minute by minute, Andrew went from checking his phone every half an hour, gradually to checking it every 10 minutes, and finally simply checking it every 2 or 3 minutes. At 9:30 in the evening, the sky was dim and it started to drizzle, but the president's mobile phone remained silent. The meeting had ended and a group of people were leaving one after another. The partner's mobile phone rang on time. Andrew pretended to look over there casually, but in fact, his ears were already perked up. "Partner, hello." Don't know what was said on the other end. "Partner, be good. I'm about to get off work." "Baby, yes, it's raining a little. Are you coming to pick me up? Then I'll wait for you." The partner went to the corner and made a phone call for a while. When walking back to the front of the office of the big president, he found that the alpha was staring at the phone with a serious expression. The partner, "Isn't Andrew getting off work yet?" Andrew, "Yeah, not yet. I'm also waiting for my baby. My baby promised to call me, just like your baby promised to pick you up." Andrew held the phone and repeated seriously, "My Omega also promised me." Andrew switched the phone to the time interface and watched the change of the minute hand on the timer. Every time the minute hand turned a full circle, the alpha's eyes dimmed a bit. The partner had already left, and Andrew still looked downstairs eagerly. He didn't take back his gaze until the taillights of the other person's car disappeared into the rain curtain. The minute hand was still turning. 1 circle, 2 circles, 3 circles. On the other hand, Leo's estrus period hadn't passed yet. Since Andrew left for work, the Omega hadn't been able to get much energy. After all, it was just a temporary marking, and an Omega will be somewhat dependent on an Alpha. Yes, it's not that Leo is dependent on Andrew. It's that an Omega instinctively depends on an Alpha's pheromones. It has nothing to do with feelings. This is just a normal physiological phenomenon. In the afternoon, Leo lay down for a while. When he opened his eyes again, it was already 9:30 in the evening. Leo was about to pick up his phone to check messages. Suddenly, he thought of what Andrew had said before leaving. Every night, make a phone call? Was it an implication to himself? Leo couldn't figure it out. The two got married through an arranged marriage. Making a phone call late at night wasn't quite appropriate. He didn't realize it in the morning, but after taking a rest, he thought it through. Just as he had analyzed before, both of them were affected by the pheromones. And Andrew's words, like, I'll be responsible and make a phone call. Must be the same call. But thinking of Andrew's repeated instructions when he left, Leo still opened the dialing interface. At 9:52 and 34 seconds p.m. when Mr. Andrew was almost staring holes into the timer on his phone, the phone finally lit up and then started vibrating. The phone rang for only 1 second before being picked up by Alpha. Are you calm now? Leo wanted to ask. Baby, Mr. Andrew shouted. Cold? I'm not cold. Thank you, baby, for your concern. Andrew's eyes lit up. I knew you'd call me. I've been waiting for you for so long. When he came out of the company building, the employees had already left. Mr. Andrew had been busy since the afternoon and hadn't had a meal yet. After getting Leo's call, he couldn't help but think of the delicate little cakes made by Omega. Exquisite small cakes. The security guard at the door was fiddling with the keys in his hand. When he saw Mr. Andrew hurrying downstairs, the security guard said, Mr. Andrew, your company usually doesn't work overtime, does it? Andrew replied, Today is an exception. The security guard didn't ask further. He yawned and was about to continue looking at his phone. Andrew cleared his throat and pointed at his wristwatch on his own. Then he pointed at his phone again. Andrew said, Ahem, I was supposed to work overtime today, but my family kept urging me to go home. He remembered that he didn't ask for the detailed reason, right? The security guard was still pondering when Andrew continued to ask, Aren't you going home, Mr. Andrew's concern seemed rather inexplicable, and the security guard was a bit puzzled. But he still explained earnestly, It's my turn to be on night shift tonight. There was a look of concern in Mr. Andrew's eyes as he said, It's so late. You still have to be on night shift alone? Don't your family urge you to go home? The security guard thought for a moment, then pointed to the thermos lunchbox on his table. He also pointed to his phone and said, My family just brought me dumplings. The security guard said, They're stuffed with zucchini and eggs. They're delicious. The security guard gave a thumbs up. The security guard said, Mr. Andrew, have you eaten yet? Having been busy all day long, and in order to wait for the family member, while waiting for the phone call, Mr. Andrew was pacing back and forth dozens of times in the office, starving, and finally Mr. Andrew, who hadn't eaten anything, said, Not yet. When Mr. Andrew got home, it was just past 10:15. Usually, the journey takes half an hour, but Alpha managed to shorten it to 15 minutes. Before Andrew even arrived, his voice came from the door. Baby, I'm back. Leo came down from upstairs, with the tips of his ears a bit red. It was unclear whether it was due to nervousness or embarrassment, and his voice was dry. Don't call me baby, Andrew. Huh, Mr. Andrew didn't understand. As he took off his wristwatch, he looked at his Omega. Does that mean I can only call you wife? Mr. Andrew thought for a while, put his things away neatly, and quickly backed out of the door. Leo was standing far away just now and didn't hear what Andrew said clearly. He was feeling puzzled. The next moment, he saw the Alpha repeat the action of coming home. Once again, the person hadn't arrived yet, but the voice came first. Only this time, the Alpha changed his address. Mr. Andrew opened the door. Wife, I'm home. Mr. Andrew thought simply. Even if it was a marriage of convenience, Leo was still his Omega. As an Alpha, when facing his Omega, of course, he would do whatever the Omega said. Mr. Andrew obediently put his things away and looked at his Omega with an expression of, Look how obedient I am. Won't you really praise me? And looked at Leo. Wife, is this okay? Can I come in now? Leo lowered his eyes, and the feeling of panic welled up again. Leo's lips moved. He wanted to say, wife, baby. Such terms of endearment can only be used for someone you truly like. They're just in a marriage of convenience, so it's not something you can call casually. Just thinking about this, Leo felt a bit inexplicably down. Leo thought for a while but couldn't figure out the reason for his low spirits. Anyway, he and Andrew aren't really together. After a moment, Leo said, You can just call me by my name, Mr. Andrew had no idea about the twists and turns in Leo's mind, and was still immersed in the joy of his Omega urging him to go home. However, given that whatever his wife says goes, Mr. Andrew nodded and agreed. Okay, wife. Mr. Andrew scratched his head and said a bit aggrievedly, Sorry, wife, I'm used to calling you that. Mr. Andrew said, Wife, calling you by your name, I'm a bit unfamiliar with it. Leo's mind was in a mess. It had been a few months since their marriage of convenience, and he and Andrew had always kept their distance from each other, but a sudden heat cycle unexpectedly disrupted all of this. It seemed that something was about to get out of control. Andrew changed his shoes, took off his watch, and then went straight to the bathroom. When he came out after taking a shower, what he saw was his omega in a daze. The effect of the temporary mark was still there, but the omega's pheromones had faded a bit. Andrew walked over, quietly wrapped his omega with pheromones. Andrew felt secretly happy. So what if the security guard has dumplings? He has an omega. His omega will even call to urge him to go home. He doesn't have to work the night shift alone and lonely, alright? His omega can also make delicious cakes. Thinking of the small cakes, Andrew hadn't eaten anything all afternoon. His stomach soon protested. Andrew turned around full of anticipation, only to see a kitchen that was cleaned spotlessly, and a refrigerator without even a scrap of leftovers. And no small cakes either. Andrew sat back next to Leo again, looking like a pitiful big dog. Honey, I haven't had dinner yet. Leo felt a bit itchy from the big dog's hair. Still struggling with the question of address, he replied casually, oh, Leo had already had dinner. If it wasn't for remembering that the alpha had repeatedly told him to call, he has now fallen asleep. When Andrew heard that Leo had returned, he immediately perked up his ears. According to the usual script, Leo should now say, so, what would you like to eat? I'll go and make it for you. But Andrew waited and waited, yet didn't wait for Leo to continue. Andrew, don't you have anything else to say? Leo didn't understand. Say what? Leo thought for a while and replied tentatively, I've eaten. Seeing that Andrew didn't seem satisfied, Leo thought he hadn't been detailed enough. Remembering the polite way they greeted each other when they met, Leo reported honestly. Auntie made seafood congee, scrambled eggs with shrimp, sliced fish with scallion, and okra with garlic. Growl. The stomach of a certain president rumbled again unceremoniously. Andrew was on the verge of self-isolation. The president was sad, so he moved even closer to Leo, and rubbed his hair against the omega's neck. Andrew, honey, I'm so hungry. Leo was ticklish and started laughing, stopping the alpha's actions. Don't move. Then how about you go out and eat now? But Andrew shook his head and really didn't move anymore. The alpha hugged his omega tightly. His voice was low, as if he was really starving. With a strong sense of grievance, he said feebly, when I got off work today, John at the door was already eating dumplings. John also said that they were made by his family. But I'm not envious. My family can make cakes. Andrew blinked and looked at Leo. Honey, am I right? Leo, under the puppy-like gaze of a certain big CEO, Leo somehow walked into the kitchen and muddledly cooked a bowl of noodles. Originally, Leo had already stood beside the oven and was about to habitually look for a sieve and an egg beater. Halfway through the action, Leo realized that there were no such things at home at all. Finally, under Andrew's pitiful gaze, Leo rummaged through the cabinet and found half a handful of noodles and a few green vegetables. Leo, how about this? The omega's voice was dry and a bit embarrassed. The aunt happened to do a thorough cleaning today. The two of them didn't have the habit of cooking at home. The kitchen and the refrigerator were all taken care of by the aunt. Given that even a clever housewife can't cook without rice, Andrew nodded. Although it was said that Leo was cooking, actually the two of them did it together. Leo unlocked the iPad and studied it step by step according to what was shown on it. Andrew obediently cleaned the two green vegetables aside. By the time Leo finished his study, the water in the pot was bubbling. The steam was a bit hot. Andrew watched for a while. Then he pushed Leo out and tied on the apron himself. The noodles were put into the pot and tumbled in the boiling water. Andrew held a spoon in one hand and salt in the other, took a taste, then added some more salt, took another taste and added some more salt, then took another taste and added some more salt. It was Leo's first time cooking with someone else. He was so absorbed. When he heard Andrew muttering in confusion, "Honey, is this salt expired?" Leo said, "Huh?" Then walked closer, took the salt, and carefully checked the production date and shelf life. Leo said, "No, It says here that the shelf life is 3 years. Leo pointed to the numbers in the lower right corner of the packaging bag for Mr. Andrew to see. Mr. Andrew was also puzzled. Then why does it have no taste at all? Leo saw Mr. Andrew smack his lips and continue with his actions. Half a spoonful of salt was put into the pot. Immediately afterwards, Mr. Andrew directly tasted the soup in the spoon that he was holding in his hand. Perhaps since the first spoonful was scooped, the soup in the spoon that had never gone into the pot again. Andrew, there really is no taste. Leo glanced at Mr. Andrew, hesitating whether to say something. Andrew, honey, what's wrong? Leo, you've been tasting the soup in this spoon all along? Leo emphasized the words, this spoon particularly. Mr. Andrew, is there any other spoon? Leo, is there a possibility? Leo paused, looking at Mr. Andrew, who still looked blank. After putting salt each time, you need to stir it, and then again. Scoop a spoonful of soup and try the taste again. What do you think? In the end, they didn't get to eat the fried dumplings. Mr. Andrew was furious and boiled a few green vegetables that hadn't been ruined yet. Of course, Leo finally ordered a takeout for him. It was dumplings again, with zucchini filling. After the takeout arrived, Leo went upstairs. It was already very late. After Andrew had a snack, he also returned to his own bedroom. The two had always lived separately, except for the unexpected heat period last time. After the temporary marking, Leo also went back to his own bedroom. Leo still carried the alpha's pheromone on him. Alphas are creatures with a strong sense of territory. Therefore, the pheromone on Leo carried possessiveness. Andrew's pheromone also had an impact on him. For example, at this moment, Leo was lost in wild thoughts, but this didn't seem to be just because of the pheromone. Then what else could it be? Leo sat by the bed for a while, sighed, and then took out the pheromone freshener from the drawer. Leo didn't know what Mr. Andrew really meant. After all, the two were just married for business reasons. Before the marriage, they didn't know each other at all. Was Mr. Andrew just because of the pheromone? Leo thought. Just thinking of this, Leo always felt a little sad, although it seemed that it should be like this. Maybe the scene of cooking together just now was too much like a home, which actually made Leo have an illusion. Leo's bedroom generally doesn't allow outsiders to enter, including Andrew. Andrew has never entered Leo's room either. When making temporary marks, Leo was initially on the sofa in the living room. Later, Mr. Andrew carried him into his own bedroom. But if Andrew saw Leo's bedroom, he would surely be surprised, because Leo's room is more like a hotel than a bedroom. The toiletries are all sample sizes and are neatly placed in the bathroom. It seems that they can be discarded at any time, given up at any time, and left at any time. The same goes for the wardrobe. Most of the compartments are empty. Only in one compartment are a few of Leo's recently changed clothes hanging. The suitcase is placed next to the wardrobe, waiting for its owner's use at any time. There are no elaborately arranged ornaments in the bedroom. Except for Leo himself, it's almost impossible to find any traces belonging to Leo. Leo looked around and suddenly thought of a certain big dog rubbing against his neck. Big dog. For no reason, Leo felt a little guilty, and just as Leo closed his eyes to rest, there was a sudden orderly knock on the door. Mr. Andrew's voice came muffled through the door. Honey, may I come in? Honey, I think my rut is coming. Leo sat up in bed in a start. His first reaction was to glance around his empty bedroom. It's just a marriage of convenience. The Omega didn't regard this villa as his home. For Leo in the past, this was a perfectly normal thing. But now, the knocking on the door interrupted Leo's thoughts. Mr. Andrew stood there for a while, holding his pillow, and the discomfort came over him again. He wasn't lying. His compatibility with Leo was quite high. Although the previous temporary mark was to soothe Leo, the blending of pheromones also advanced the alpha's rut. The tall alpha was leaning against the door. In front of the now closed door, his shadow was stretched infinitely long, showing a bit of desolation. Not hearing Leo's reply, Mr. Andrew knocked on the door again. Andrew, honey, the alpha's voice, separated by a door and affected by the rut, sounded a bit dull. That strange feeling in Leo's heart welled up again. Leo reached out and touched the gland on the back of his neck. But his current condition is normal. His gland is neither feverish nor hot. His pheromones are well concealed. This means that he is not in an omega's estrus period. But why does he want to hug the alpha? Strange, Leo thought as he looked at his hand. Can the influence of pheromones between an alpha and an omega really be this strong? Andrew almost pressed his ear against the door, listening to the movement inside. After a brief silence, Leo still managed to control the hand that wanted to embrace and said, "Don't you have any suppressants prepared?" Leo waited, but didn't get an answer from Andrew. Instead, through the door, he heard a muffled groan from Mr. Andrew. It was as if he was trying his best to suppress it while enduring great pain. The muffled groan wasn't loud. It only lasted for a short 1 or 2 seconds, but it immediately made Leo's face change. Andrew, those struggles about just a marriage of convenience, were instantly thrown to the back of his mind. Leo opened the door and asked, "How are you? Where does it hurt?" Leo wanted to ask more, but was suddenly pulled into the alpha's arms. Andrew's hand behind Leo slid the screen of his phone imperceptibly. An hour ago, the alpha noticed that something was wrong with him, sent a message to the partner. "Andrew, take a leave tomorrow. I need to get some suppressants." Partner, "You still use suppressants, don't you?" Partner, "I have a wife." This is the first conversation. Half an hour later, Andrew sent a message again. "Andrew, can your wife soothe you? Will she accompany you during your susceptible period?" This time, the partner replied a bit slowly. After about 10 minutes, the partner directly pulled Mr. Andrew into a group chat. Group chat name: Research on the dilemmas and countermeasures faced by an alpha when catching an omega's heart in the context of arranged marriage. Research group, subject group, Mr. Andrew clicked into the group files in confusion and saw Guide to the Development of the Suffer Self-Injury Strategy. Mr. Andrew said, "I've found a treasure." The process of learning knowledge went very fast, but Mr. Andrew knew well the necessity of combining theoretical learning with practice, with the action principle of, if the mountain won't come to Muhammad, Muhammad must go to the mountain. He embarked on a new journey towards happiness. Time returns to the present. Mr. Andrew hugs his omega tightly. "Honey, holding you makes me feel better." Andrew, "Honey, I need you so much." Leo's ear tips turn red again. "You, don't talk nonsense." Andrew, "I'm telling the truth. My honey is really important." This sentence wasn't learned from the tutorial. Since childhood, Mr. Lou has been teaching little Andrew like this. The pillow is still in Mr. Andrew's hand. The alpha raises the pillow, motioning Leo to look. "So, honey, can I sleep with you?" Leo hesitates again. But Andrew looks at the omega, who seems to want to say something but stops. "Honey, is it inconvenient?" Andrew, "It's okay if we don't sleep together." "Honey, can I sleep on the floor then? As long as I can stay by my honey's side, I can do anything." Leo suddenly has an illusion that his tolerance towards Mr. Andrew, his arranged marriage partner, is like the water in a sponge. As long as you squeeze it, there's always a bit more room to give in. When being held tightly in Andrew's arms, Leo subconsciously wants to push him away. It's just a marriage of convenience. It's just a marriage of convenience. It's just a marriage of convenience. Leo told himself over and over again in his heart. But the two of them were really too close, and their heartbeats were too intense, gradually drowning out the 4 words that Leo had emphasized again and again. "Honey, is it okay?" Mr. Andrew spoke, and because they were so close, Leo seemed to be able to feel the vibration in Mr. Andrew's chest. The orange-scented pheromone gently twined around Leo's fingertips, but it seemed to be afraid of being disliked by Leo. The pheromone only dared to linger around Leo's fingertips. Andrew, "Honey." Leo thought of a video he had watched a long time ago. The protagonist of the video was a little dog. The dog was very obedient and carried the leash in its mouth, asking its owner to get close. It was a bit pitiful. Leo curled his fingertips. "Just for tonight, okay?" Mr. Andrew agreed repeatedly, happily holding the pillow. "You wait." Leo wanted to say, "You wait a moment, I'll tidy up," but Mr. Andrew clearly didn't want to wait even a moment. Before Leo could finish speaking, The door of the bedroom was suddenly pushed open by Andrew. The next moment, the air fell into a deathly silence. Mr. Andrew blinked in confusion, holding the pillow. Then he walked out with the pillow in his arms, glanced at Leo standing by the door, confirming that this was his Omega's bedroom. But why did it seem like no one lived here? The TV still had a dust cover on it, and so did the sofa. There were things placed on the cabinet beside the bed. Mr. Andrew took a look. They were disposable toiletries, exactly the same as those used in hotels. The only thing that showed a bit of a living atmosphere was the bed. But there were only bedding on the bed. The whole room was desolate, empty and void. Leo was really a bit nervous now, although he hadn't quite figured out why he felt nervous. He still explained, "Well, I just did a cleaning. It might seem a bit empty." Mr. Andrew looked at Leo, not knowing whether he believed it or not. Anyway, the hand that was holding Leo slipped off. Leo closed his eyes, feeling inexplicably a bit sad. Before, when Andrew was holding his wrist, he didn't feel any discomfort. But now that Mr. Andrew let go, suddenly, he felt that the place where the alpha had held him was burning hot. The burning sensation made him even more sad. Just tidied up? It was a long time before Leo heard Mr. Andrew speak and ask. Leo didn't know how to answer. Leo kinda wanted to give up on himself. "Sorry, just as you can see, I want to leave at any time." Leo wanted to say that he wanted to leave at any time and that Andrew should stop meddling in his affairs. The marriage alliance is just a marriage alliance. Don't give him illusions anymore. Leo hung his head and looked at his shoes. He was clearly just stating a fact, but this time, for no reason, his heart felt more and more stuffy. A sour feeling clogged his nasal cavity, and a mist formed in front of his eyes. Just as Leo was feeling sad, his hand was pulled back by Mr. Andrew. The alpha's ears were a bit red. "Honey, I miss you too." Did Leo hold back the mist in front of his eyes? "Andrew, honey, did you specifically tidy up your things because you want to live with me?" His Omega had tidied up his things so well. He must be ready to move into his place at any time, just like he was always ready with his own pillow to come and find Leo. So they were both going towards each other. "Andrew, honey, I'm so happy." Leo was even more confused. "When did I say I miss you?" In fact, Leo didn't realize that when he said, "leave," his voice was trembling and soft. It was more of reluctance and sadness than a rational farewell. Mr. Andrew didn't catch the whole sentence clearly, only faintly caught a few syllables. "Yes, I miss you." So his Omega was packing because he missed him? So his Omega also wanted to live with him. His Omega was so cute, and his family members were indeed clingy. Mr. Andrew thought that as an alpha, he must be more proactive. So the next moment, under Leo's stunned gaze, the alpha quickly pulled Leo's suitcase that was easy to take away at any time, and bundled Leo up along with it, and took him back to his bedroom. So fast and efficient that by the time Leo came to his senses, he was already standing at the door of Mr. Andrew's bedroom. Mr. Andrew tidied up his bed, then he sat on the bed enthusiastically and greeted Leo at the door. "Honey, come in." Mr. Andrew was extremely enthusiastic. Leo paused for a moment, a bit hesitant. Leo started to think about the possibility of carrying his luggage back, but the thought had barely lasted 2 seconds when Mr. Andrew had already patted the bed 5 times. "Andrew, honey." Andrew continued to sit on the bed and waved at Leo. "Honey, honey." Finally, unable to resist the overwhelming hospitality, Leo walked in. Only after entering the room did Leo realize how absurd the things that happened tonight were. Was he living with Andrew now? Although they had already obtained a marriage certificate and had that official relationship, even living together wasn't a big deal, and could even be considered perfectly normal. But they were just in a marriage of convenience. In Leo's circle, there were quite a few people in arranged marriages. However, those who could make it to the end were very few. On the contrary, most of them harbored resentment due to the arranged marriage and slept in the same bed with different dreams. In an arranged marriage, if one party fell in love, then the ending could only be more tragic. Leo didn't want that, so from the very beginning, he had warned himself, it's just a marriage of convenience. Leo admitted that he was always a bit pessimistic about love. What's more, he has to build a relationship starting from strangers. His marriage to Andrew is just a contract, merely a formality. They won't be together for too long. A few years will pass by quickly. When the contract expires, they will eventually go their separate ways. If Andrew didn't hold him like this now, just now, after Leo entered the room and before he could react, he was suddenly pulled into the arms of the Alpha. The Alpha was in the rut, and Leo was scalded by the heat on Andrew's body. Even his heart seemed to be wrapped in a warm current. Leo was startled. Andrew took action first and then informed, patting the Omega's back soothingly. Honey, let me hold you for a little while. Okay, Andrew. Just for a little while. Honey, Leo. Okay, honey, is it okay to put the things you don't often use here? Mr. Andrew held him for a while, then his eyes fell on the packed suitcase of Leo. Looking at the solitary suitcase, Mr. Andrew seemed to think of something. A moment later, he got out of bed and tidied up the cabinet in his bedroom. Mr. Andrew turned his head and continued to say to Leo, put the things my wife doesn't often use on this side, and put mine on the other side. Put the things we often use in the middle. Andrew, honey, what do you think? Leo didn't have many things and couldn't think of a reason to object, so he nodded. Andrew suddenly got energetic. Mr. Andrew thought of his theoretical study just now. Facing one's Omega, as an Alpha, no matter when and where, one should make one's Omega feel the warmth of home. Excerpted from the A Decode. Mr. Andrew understood. There's no reason to keep things in a suitcase when one is home. Mr. Andrew got out of bed quickly. After getting Leo's consent, he couldn't wait to open Leo's suitcase. When he rummaged to the toiletries, Mr. Andrew stared at the sample in his hand for 2 seconds. But the Alpha didn't make any other moves. Andrew smilingly put Leo's toiletries together with his own, and arranged them from largest to smallest. The clothes were put separately, only that Mr. Andrew secretly wrapped his pheromones around them. The suitcase was slowly emptied. When Leo came to his senses, his things had already been arranged neatly by Mr. Andrew. The clear-cut boundary was broken, and the interaction of daily necessities became a you are in me, and I am in you in another sense. Honey, I finished packing. Andrew didn't know if his behavior could be considered warm, hesitated for 2 seconds, and then turned on the air conditioner again. When the warm air blew on Leo's face, bringing a trace of warmth, Mr. Andrew finally nodded in satisfaction. Leo felt that he should be a little happier if it weren't for the 37-degree hot day. The hot air was blowing straight at Leo. It was already hot, and soon, Leo broke out in a thin layer of sweat. Andrew, honey, do you feel the warmth of home? Leo, it is quite warm. Not only warm, but I also feel the scorching heat of home. May I ask if your home is on the flaming mountain? Less than 5 minutes after the hot air of the air conditioner was running, it obediently changed back to cold air again. Leo was already afraid of the heat and had sweated within a few minutes. The bath earlier was in vain. Leo dug out another set of his pajamas. As expected, he found that the pajamas were full of tangerine-flavored pheromones. It was sickly sweet, but Leo didn't dislike it much. Instead, he felt a little reassured. The next day, at 6 in the morning, Leo woke up in a rather sturdy embrace. The Alpha had one hand on Leo's waist. The other hand patted Leo's head. Sleep a little longer? After the two of them finished washing up last night, they delayed for a while, and it was already very late. Plus Andrew took a day off today, so the two of them slept until now. Andrew raised his hand to cover Leo's eyes, blocking the sunlight that crept in through the gap in the curtains. Leo dozed off again in a daze. Mr. Andrew turned on the hot air last night, although it didn't last a few minutes. But it was already summer, and the two of them still sweated all over. After Leo took a bath, he picked up the book he usually read. The sound of water clattering in the bathroom. Leo is a little distracted. The words that usually soothed his mind seemed to be under some kind of spell. Leo couldn't read a single word. The orange, scented pheromone in the room became even stronger, mixed with the dampness of the water mist. It started to spread from the bathroom. Leo closed the book, feeling restless. Leo knew that his abnormal emotions at this time were most likely influenced by Andrew. He had a temporary mark with Andrew, and between an alpha and an omega with a temporary mark, emotions could often be transmitted and influenced mutually. That is to say, the person who was upset at this time should be Andrew. In fact, it was not just being upset, but also an endless sense of restlessness, longing. Leo suddenly wanted to escape again, to leave here, to leave the alpha. He knew how dangerous it would be for an omega to be in the same room with an alpha, especially an alpha who was about to enter the rut period. Even though there was already a temporary mark between him and Andrew, even though they were already married, but Leo admitted that at this point, he was still uneasy. The alpha stood under the shower head and turned the water temperature to the lowest. Obviously, he had entered the rut period. A voice in his heart said, "Your omega is right outside the door. You can mark him, even possess him completely." The scarlet gradually spread in Andrew's alpha eyes. The man had smooth muscle lines on his arms. He held the doorknob and was about to press it down. But just when he was about to open the door, Andrew saw the toiletries arranged from large to small in front of the washstand. Those were the sample packs. Blue veins appeared on Andrew's alpha handbag. After sighing, he suddenly let go of the doorknob. He stepped back under the cold water. The water was turned on to the maximum, and the cold water hit his scorching skin. Andrew the alpha seemed to be in a world of extreme heat and cold. On one side was the clamor that was so hot it was about to boil. On the other side was the precarious coolness and rationality. Half an hour later, Andrew the alpha put on a bite guard for himself. Andrew the alpha hung his head, and his voice was a bit hoarse due to the rut. "Honey." Leo felt the surging pheromones on Andrew and subconsciously wanted to step back. But Andrew stepped back first. The alpha raised both hands. Standing 5 meters away from Leo in a completely non-threatening posture. "Honey, I definitely won't hurt you." Leo was a bit stunned and saw Andrew's situation clearly. The bite guard was a bit small, leaving red marks on Andrew the alpha's face. The alpha moved very carefully, approaching him little by little. Leo could feel that the pheromones in the air had also changed. They were not aggressive, but rather like a warm cotton quilt, gently enveloping Leo. Andrew was trying his best to soothe him. Andrew said, "Trust me, okay?" Somewhat involuntarily, the unease in Leo's heart was thus smoothed away. Leo nodded and gradually tried to release soothing pheromones. The second half of the night passed very quietly. First, Andrew felt very uncomfortable. When holding Leo, he would also unconsciously approach the omega's gland. But because of the bite stopper, the alpha could only gently rub against Leo's neck. Andrew's breath was very hot, spraying onto the area below Leo's earlobe. The bite stopper was made of metal and sometimes rubbed against Leo's neck. Clearly the touch was cold, but Leo felt it was hot. He couldn't help but shrink back a little. Andrew thought he had startled Leo. "Honey, I'm sorry." The alpha, over 1.8 meters tall, didn't dare to move at all. He immediately behaved himself, being obedient, but still a little aggrieved. "Honey, I can't control myself just a little bit, Andrew. But I'm sure I can control myself well." "Honey, don't be afraid," Leo softly replied with an just as Mr. Andrew said. He just hugged Leo. In the second half of the night, Mr. Andrew took several cold showers again. It was not until the pheromones stabilized that the man took off the bite stopper. He then used an inhibitor on himself before approaching to kiss Leo's lips. Leo was really sleepy and didn't respond. He turned over. The alpha then naturally kicked Leo's quilt off the bed, and then wrapped Leo in his own quilt. They slept soundly until dawn. When Leo woke up completely, Andrew was no longer by his side. Leo was wrapped in the alpha's quilt. Inevitably, his body was also stained with the alpha's pheromones. The sweet fragrance of oranges permeated every part of the omega's body. Everything was getting out of control. Strangely, Leo didn't feel the slightest bit of aversion. Leo stared blankly for a while and then was about to get out of bed to wash up. But he stared at the washstand for a long time. He couldn't find his small-sized toothpaste. There was an unopened one placed beside it instead. There was also a note pasted on the unopened toothpaste, which was in Alpha's handwriting. Leo took a look, and the gist was that Mr. Andrew accidentally knocked over Leo's toothpaste while washing up, and no one knew where it rolled to. Alpha had searched for it for a long time but couldn't find it. He hoped that Leo could make do with this one first. Leo was a bit puzzled, but didn't pay much attention and casually opened the package. However, while brushing his teeth, Leo always felt that the taste of the toothpaste was familiar. After washing up and returning to the bedroom, Leo sat on the edge of the bed. He was just seeing the bite guard on the bedside table. The bite guard had been taken off by Alpha and placed there. Leo stretched out his finger and poked it, and the metal buckle made a clang, clear clashing sound. Awake, Andrew heard the commotion in the bedroom and appeared at the door. Yeah, Leo replied. After a pause, he then asked, "Are you feeling better?" "Much better." Andrew was holding a cup of warm water and walked closer to look at Leo. There was still a red mark on Andrew's nose from wearing the bite guard. On the side of his face near the ear, there was also the outline left by the metal buckle pressing. Leo was stared at by Alpha's gaze and somehow felt a bit flushed. His eyes wandered and landed on the quilt at the foot of the bed. Leo remembered that he generally didn't kick the quilt off. "Leo, did I kick the quilt off last night? That shouldn't be the case. I usually don't kick the quilt off." Cough, cough, cough. "Mister." Andrew looked in the direction Leo was looking. The quilt was lying all alone in the corner. "Mister." Andrew remembered his natural and smooth kick last night. Fortunately, Mr. Andrew's theoretical learning is quite solid. It was said in the learning materials in the group files that there is nothing that a kiss can't solve. If there is, then kiss for half an hour. So, while Leo was thinking about things, his lips were pecked. Before Leo could react, Andrew's kiss landed again. First, it was just a light touch, only grinding on the lips. After Leo had difficulty breathing and his teeth opened slightly, the alpha began to take over. The kiss had a familiar lemon flavor. Leo finally remembered why he had a sense of déjà vu when brushing his teeth just now. There was a sense of déjà vu, because the last time Andrew kissed him, it was a lemon-flavored kiss. So the toothpaste he used was probably the same as Alpha's. The lemon flavor lingered between his lips and teeth, and Leo's cheeks were a little flushed. Is it really a coincidence that they used the same toothpaste? Or is it just an accident? A thought flashed through Leo's mind, but soon, Leo didn't have the heart to think about these things anymore. Alpha was kissing him, fingers clasping his neck. He wanted to retreat, but Andrew's hand exerted force, not allowing him to retreat even half a step. Leo no longer knew how long he had been kissed. This kiss was long. The blush on Leo's face spread to his neck, and his fair skin showed a faint pink. Even the corners of his eyes were tinged with moisture. Omega's eyelashes fluttered gently like butterfly wings. Because he couldn't bear it, he let out a sound. Then the sound was swallowed up again. "Honey, I'm sorry." When Leo was completely powerless and could only be held around the waist by Alpha, Mr. Andrew apologized politely. Andrew admitted, "Honey, I kicked the quilt to the ground." Andrew explained, "But there was a reason. Honey, you don't know. Last night, when you fell asleep, you just kept hugging the quilt." Andrew continued to mutter, "You hugged it for a full 37 minutes. Rounding it up, it's almost an hour." Mr. Andrew calculated in his heart and then became more confident. "How many hours are there in a night? I was feeling bad. That's why I made." Leo couldn't help but chime in. "The mistake that most alphas make?" Mr. Andrew, "I didn't. I'm an alpha with integrity. Don't talk nonsense." Mr. Andrew composed himself after being interrupted and then continued, "Honey, I'll wash the quilt later. Don't be angry with me, okay?" Leo's face turned even redder. How could he be in the mood to be angry? The Omega didn't even know where to put his hands. There was still a faint lemon flavor lingering on his lips. The alpha's pheromones wrapped him tightly again. Andrew called him, "Baby." Andrew was still holding his hand and asked again, "Don't be angry, okay?" In front of the washstand, Leo fell into deep thought as he looked at the note that appeared again. Under Mr. Andrew's various accidental bumps, his sample products were almost used up. Leo's original sample shower gel had already been used up last week. Was forced to switch to the same style as President Liu. At the moment, the sample shampoo has also disappeared. Mr. Andrew's notes are getting more and more fluent. Obviously, the shampoo is also of the same style. In the past, Leo would pack everything up and put it in the suitcase. Now, his things have been sorted by Mr. Andrew and put into the bedroom. The suitcase that could be taken away at any time has also disappeared, replaced by a wardrobe that is no longer clearly divided, 2 books placed together, charging cables intertwined together. Wait, charging cable. Leo looked at the obviously mismatched charging cable in his hand, and silently held his forehead. He made a temporary mark before going to bed last night, and was in a hurry when going out this morning. He actually took Alpha's charger by mistake, and Alpha, who is at the company, also has a completely mismatched charger in his hand at this time. There was originally a charger in the office, but it was taken out on a business trip last time, and forgotten to bring back. Yesterday, Mr. Andrew's phone almost ran out of power. He brought the charger from home this morning. Actually, it doesn't matter if the phone shuts down. Mr. Andrew was just worried about missing calls from his family. When the partner pushed the door open and came in, he saw Mr. Andrew holding a charging cable with a serious expression. The partner put the documents for Mr. Andrew to sign on the table, swiveled the chair and sat opposite Andrew. "What are you looking at?" The partner reached out his hand, also wanting to see what was so magical about the charger. The outstretched hand was pushed away, and Mr. Andrew said coldly, "Don't touch it." The partner said, "It's just a charging cable. What's so great about it?" Andrew said, "This is no ordinary charging cable." Mr. Andrew pretended to be profound and said, "This is my family's charging cable." The partner said indifferently, "Oh, so what?" Mr. Andrew said excitedly, "Do you want to know why our charging cables got mixed up? Do you want to figure out the mystery of how 2 unrelated charging cables are intertwined with each other and closely entangled? What on earth is all this?" Partner: "I don't." Mr. Andrew looked over coldly. "You do." The partner, who was forced to want to know. "Huh?" Andrew: "Well, since you're so eager to know, I'll reluctantly tell you." Finally, Mr. Andrew happily shared with his partner the results of his study and practice during this period, and showed his partner the group materials printed on the desk and neatly organized. Mr. Andrew said proudly, "I also took so many notes, full of useful information." Partner: "So have you read the project plan I sent you?" Mr. Andrew flipped through it for a while, and found the plan mentioned by his partner from a corner. "You mean this?" The partner smiled. Partner: "Do you still remember you have a company?" Mr. Andrew coughed twice. "I've been a bit busy with dating and almost forgot." Recently, due to Mr. Andrew's leave, the partner, who was already extremely busy. Goodbye. Fortunately, Mr. Andrew finally put down the charger. He started to work honestly. The company has always been busy, and when he gets busy, he forgets the time. By the time Mr. Andrew finally finished his work, it was already 9 or 10 o'clock at night. However, today, Mr. Andrew received a call from his family with great satisfaction. Mr. Andrew and the partner each occupied a corner of the corridor. One side called, "Baby," and the other side shouted, "Wife," to the other end of the phone without showing weakness. The partner: "Baby, I'll be back soon." Mr. Andrew: "Wife, I'll be back soon too." Leo's birthday is at the end of the year. Coincidentally, the end of the year is the busiest time, so Leo didn't tell Andrew about this, who knew that on the day of his birthday, as soon as Leo woke up, he received a bunch of fiery red roses. Mr. Andrew was dressed in a well-tailored dark gray suit, holding flowers in his hands, stepping on the colorful, of course, there was no colorful auspicious clouds. Mr. Andrew was stepping on a rather odd-looking colorful balance bike, waving hands at Leo handsomely. "Hi, wife." Andrew: "Good morning, wife. My dear wife, have you woken up?" While waving, Mr. Andrew didn't notice his feet and stumbled. He almost tripped over the doorframe. Leo was also startled, and now he was really awake. As Mr. Andrew approached, Leo also noticed Mr. Andrew's colorful auspicious clouds. The graffiti on the balance bike should be drawn by himself. Leo stared at the strangely shaped blob on the balance bike for a long time, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Leo didn't know if it was auspicious clouds. Anyway, it was colorful: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. Leo counted, and there were exactly 7 colors. Alpha handed the flowers in his arms to Leo. Andrew: "Honey, guess how many there are." Leo looked at the bouquet in confusion. Roses, they should be related to love, right? So Omega asked tentatively, 99, Mr. Andrew had a look of, how could you think so too? And then proudly told Leo, exactly 100. Leo, 100. Andrew, yes, it symbolizes a long life. But when I ordered the flowers yesterday, my partner also said 99 flowers. Andrew had an expression of, my partner is really stingy. I'm different. Wife, you must look at me more. And said proudly, fortunately, I was quick-eyed and changed it to 100. Wife, I wish you. Every year has today, and every age has this day. Wife, aren't you happy? Leo smiled and replied euphemistically, if I weren't just 25 years old, I should be happier. At noon, the two had a meal with their friends. In the evening, Mr. Andrew mysteriously asked Leo to close his eyes again, saying there was another surprise, because he was going out. Leo put on a down jacket and just opened the door, but was pulled back by Mr. Andrew, who carefully tied a scarf for the Omega. Getting too close, Leo felt a bit uncomfortable and asked in a low voice, are we going out for dinner? Just have something simple. Andrew slightly frowned and looked serious. How can it be simple? Mr. Andrew said, this is not an ordinary birthday. It's an annual birthday. Leo was puzzled. But, isn't everyone's birthday an annual event? Mr. Andrew thought for a while and it seemed there really wasn't any. But that doesn't matter. Andrew took Leo's hand and led the Omega to walk forward with him. The yard of the villa had already changed. Blue and white balloons hung all over the branches in the courtyard. A warm yellow string of lights extended forward, and at the end was the center of the yard. There were 2 chibi-style snowmen piled up there. The snowmen weren't piled up perfectly, but if one looked closely, they could also notice that on these 2 snowmen, there were clearly the shadows of Leo and Andrew. The 2 snowmen were holding hands, and in the other hand of one of the snowmen was a heart. Mr. Andrew led the Omega to the snowman, let go of his hand, and asked Leo to open his eyes. Leo looked at the snowman, then turned to look at Andrew. Did you make these? Andrew, yes. Leo, aren't you cold? Andrew didn't answer whether he was cold or not, and casually raised his hand, which was still a bit red from being frozen for too long. I'm fine, as long as my wife is happy. In the next second, Mr. Andrew's hand was indeed held by Leo. Leo couldn't help but hold Mr. Andrew's hand with his warmest palm, showing his heartache. After warming it for a while, Mr. Andrew took the heart held by the snowman with his other hand. Under Leo's puzzled gaze, Andrew put the snow-made heart into Leo's hand. Leo's palm was very warm, and the ice and snow melted under the warmth. Water trickled down through Leo's fingers, leaving behind a ring that refracted little starlight. Mr. Andrew knelt on one knee, looked into Leo's eyes, and asked seriously, Leo, would you like to be my Omega? Not as someone from the Lu group, nor for the sake of a marriage alliance, but as someone belonging to Andrew himself. Mr. Andrew had hidden so many small notes that he had used up a whole box. He only hoped that Leo would have more concerns and not leave at any time. Don't just regard it as a marriage alliance, and don't just be a passerby. Mr. Andrew was rarely serious. He said, Leo, I like you so much. Leo's fingers curled slightly, and his heart was beating very fast, very violently. It even seemed as if it was about to jump out of his chest. But in fact, Leo was not unfamiliar with this feeling. Every time he was with Andrew, he would have the same feeling. Leo's lips moved, as if asking himself, like? Andrew, however, gave an affirmative answer. Yeah, I do. I like you. It's not a marriage of alliance, but liking. Leo stretched out his hand, and the ice and snow had already melted in his palm. But in such a warm situation, how could the ice and snow not melt? Leo looked up. The small lights carefully arranged in the yard were like a sea of stars. The starlight reflected in his eyes, and a touch of warm yellow also lit up in Leo's eyes. Andrew had been waiting for Leo's reply. Leo saw the same warm yellow in the Alpha's eyes, and firmness and conviction. So, the Omega grasped the ring in his palm. Leo said, I do.